Good evening, shortcuts. This is video 1 for your shortcuts list from Wednesday, March 15th. I'm not quite sure what to make of this list, other than to say there's some things in here that don't exist on Discogs that I really can't find out any information about at all, very much. And so I'll just share it with you in this video. Make of it what you will. We're talking jazz, ambient, punk, and soul in this compilation. Now, you may recognize Art Blakey if you're a shortcuts aficionado. And so I had to wear this t-shirt because of this record. Now, the first 4 records are jazz. When I get the list from Shibuya from my colleagues in Japan, often they don't give me any information, but every so often they put little asterisks beside the lists, and often I get a list after it delivers. You get this automated message, it just appears and it says, here's what's in here. And sometimes in that automated list, it calls out certain records that the folks in Shibuya think are in particularly good condition or have, or are unusual. And there's 3 of those in this pretty small bundle. Now, the 4 jazz records, Art Blakey, Moanin'. Now this pressing has a tiny bit of blotching on the back, but the notes from Japan are that the vinyl is in superb condition. Now that's rare. I played it earlier tonight. It is stellar sounding copy. And now this is high. I cannot find any information about this. So this is Booker Little's record Time from, I think it's 1960. Now Booker Little was a trumpet player, a really melodic trumpet player, if sometimes a little bit morose, kind of prefer not as upbeat as Lee Morgan, more reserved, but hugely melodic. And I think that's a representation of his time on earth. He was only with us for 23 years. And a lot of that time he was ill. He had a number of really kind of pretty painful conditions that ultimately took his life at the age of 23. He only appeared on 4 records where he was the named band leader. And this is probably his best. Beautiful cover. Wynton Kelly on piano with this particular record is a really sweet accompaniment. Now the reason that this has been called out is, can you see the obi? So this is Bernie Grundman. And all the way through this is a description of how audiophile this pressing is. It's described as a Bernie Grundman cut. It's on 200 gram vinyl with a really unusual label. It weighs a ton. It genuinely is gleaming. It says Bernie Grundman Series 2000 Cut 1. I cannot find anything anywhere on the internet about this record. VIJJ60001. It's in immaculate condition. 200 gram Bernie Grundman cut. I have no idea. I've searched. I cannot find out any information. What cool thing. It doesn't exist on Discogs. Doesn't exist anywhere. Not the first record on this list. It doesn't exist on Discogs. And the other two jazz records that were asterisked were these two. John Coltrane Plays the Blues and Giant Steps. Now, Giant Steps needs no introduction. 1960, often appears on any list of the greatest records of all time. Pretty much all John Coltrane original recordings, original songs. Beautiful, playful. Man, if you don't know this record, just explore it. It's fabulous. And that cutting is great. But this, John Coltrane Plays the Blues, is also on the Atlantic label, as is this. This is after Coltrane's Blue Note time. And this one here, Elvin Jones and drums and some other really cool players. Particularly McCoy Tyner on piano, means that this is incredibly melodic. Really beautiful melodies. I was talking to my friend and club member Ivan about this record earlier today, and he said to me, "You don't like John Coltrane," which is true. I'm really not a John Coltrane fan. But that record is beautiful. Explore. It's really, really cool. Now, on a completely different note, Brian Eno will appear on the classic record set very, very soon. And I have a t-shirt to match, as you might expect. But he also, Eno's an intellectual, a producer, he's a savant, just a genius, it just is. And he has invented several genres of music, or certainly pioneered several genres of music, particularly ambient music. Now, this is the fourth of his series of 4 ambient recordings. Started with Ambient 1, Airport. This is Ambient 4, On Land, the Japanese first press. Beautiful, beautiful record, and creates a feeling. And he deliberately, he has described that this is deliberately background music. This is music you play not to focus on, but to be around. And that's what makes it kind of unique and kind of gorgeous. Now, never had, let me just see. 3 out of those first 5 I've never had before. How cool is that? Including this. Never had this record before. 1973. Freddie Hubbard, Stanley Turrentine, Ron Carter, Herbie Hancock, Jack DeJohnette, and Eric Gale live. Wow. Look at that for a hard cardboard gatefold. Isn't that magnificent? There they are. Now, I've been reading up on this because I only played a couple of songs from it. Mostly because there are only 2 songs, one on side A and one on side B. The backing band are stellar, and you can tell that they inspire, the 2 horn blowers on sax and trumpet. Jack DeJohnette on drums too. He's a dude. Beautiful, beautiful sleeve. I think there'll be somebody out there who will love that record. Now, the next album is also new to Shortcuts. And this had not just an asterisk beside it from our friends in Shibuya. It had a paragraph. This is the UK first press of Hatfield and the North. And almost reluctant to unfold this, but it is really in immaculate condition. I'm going to very carefully put this back because this is a seriously important record. Hatfield and the North were one of the great exemplars of what was called the Canterbury scene, which was a British, let's call it, brand of prog that was all about layered texture of keyboards and guitars. One of my personal favorite prog records of all time, Sea Shanty by Can, is Canterbury Scene. Probably the most famous Canterbury band is Caravan, like Land of the Grey and Pink, or, Cunning Stunts and those records. But this probably is the most mythical band. Robert Wyatt, from a great songwriter and notably in a bunch of different Canterbury bands, turns up on this record. It's like an intertwined movie, but not a Martin Scorsese movie, because there's no blood and thunder. It's more mellow, more like a classic John Ford Western or something like that. Really worth investigating. A very rare and very, very beautiful record. Now, this one doesn't exist in Discogs either. And this one, it's a sad record. So this is a very unusual title. It's still in the shrink. That's Tim Harden. He was a folk singer, pretty most famous in the 60s, wrote some songs that became part of the canon of some pretty big artists. So Reason to Believe by Rod Stewart, or If I Were a Carpenter, covered by Joan Baez and Bob Dylan and many, many other acts. All Tim Harden songs. So think British folk, kind of early prog. A very sad individual, died of complications from his heroin addiction. And this record is from, I think, 1970, Suite for Susan Moore and Damien. We are one, all in one. And that, of course, well, actually not of course, but that's his wife and son. And this record is like a meditation on what it means to be a father and to love. So it's a very melodic record, mostly acoustic. Interestingly, as you listen to it, a lot of the melodies that make up some of the acoustic songs on Led Zeppelin's first album are lifted almost note for note from this record. So you can go on the blogosphere and you can read about the folks who've tied Led Zeppelin 1 back to Tim Harden. But it's a really, really beautiful record. And again, not on Discogs. In fact, I can't find anything about it anywhere as well. Not quite as mysterious as the Bernie Grundman cut, the 200-gram cut from with Booker Little, but still a rare and unusual piece. Now, maybe next week or the week after, I've been saving it up, I'm having a bit of a Tom Waits special. But for tonight, we've got In the Heart of Saturday Night, his second record. This sleeve, of course, being a tribute to Frank Sinatra's classic sleeve that looks similar. I don't know. It's some songs dedicated to Jack Kerouac, but also San Diego Serenade, Diamonds on My Windshield, but the title track itself, The Heart of Saturday Night, is just magnificent music. Talk about magnificent music. Everyone knows Motown Soul, the Motor City, Detroit. But Philadelphia had its own soul scene as well. Nicknamed the Philadelphia Sound. And this is a really cool. I've been searching for a duplicate of this because I've had one of these on my shelf for quite some time now. But this album brings together Billy Paul, the Three Degrees, OJ's, MFSB, Harold Melvin on the Blue Notes, onto probably the greatest single record compilation of the Philly sound. You're talking strings and drama and ultra melodic, just pure music that just is made for vinyl. And that is a really cool compilation. Something very different, some funk. Wild Cherry, look at that sleeve. One of the most salacious sleeves that's ever been. But talk about a hit single. Play that funky music. Now, Wild Cherries play that funky music with number one all over the world, pretty much forever and a day. But there are other tracks in that album that are, if not as iconic, certainly as booty shaking. And I've never had that before, and so I'm hoping someone out there might like it. And then finally, this go kind of almost is beyond description. So as I said, I'm just gonna have to show you. This is a compilation called Keep the Babylon. It's a compilation of Sydney punk bands. To the best of my knowledge, I think this is from maybe the early 90s or mid 90s. It says distributed by Black Rose Bookshop, 583 King Street in Newtown. For those of you who live in the inner west, I'd be very keen to know whether that still exists. The Radio Skid Row benefit. And this features bands like Smut, Omnicide, Subversion, Stalin's Organ, Lawn Smell, Repeat Offenders, Blood Clot, Injured Head, Compound Fracture, and Mind Crack. Oh dear. Well, what's wonderful is what it comes with. Look at this sticker. The sticker of the dude, the punk rocker switching on his stereo. It's got the poster, which I can only assume it was a benefit show, and this was maybe made specially for the show. If anyone knows the history, please let me know. Babylon, the book. And so the book, it talks about Transmit to the Max, a community radio station. And then lots of cartoons and descriptions of various punk scenes and bands. Then Hardcore Punk Radio 88.9. Another sticker. And then the record itself is on a white label. So I don't think there are many of these around. Pretty unusual fare. So, if you came to Shortcuts tonight looking for, standard operating practice, I'm sorry, I've not fulfilled the brief. This is a very different range of records. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed watching me peruse those. Any feedback, as always, I love it. And thank you very much for watching, and look out for the list on Wednesday.